Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here with my next Star Wars video. This is going to be my review for Andor episode 10. So, we get the prison break here in a relatively focused episode, in that I think it's the prison break and then there's basically one scene with nearly all of the other plots. I'm pretty sure only Cyril is the only character we don't really go back to in this episode. So otherwise, we get a very quick one with Cinta and a brief update that Andor's mother, I think, is choosing not to take her medication. So I think we're building up to her death, and I suppose potentially what she decides to do when she realizes she's about to die. And I get the impression she's going to go out with one final rebellious act, but we'll see what it is that they actually do with that. I think her death and Andor becoming aware of it probably is going to be the thing that puts him on the more rebel-focused trajectory for Season 2. So I think that's what they're going to do there. Not exactly sure what the Cinta stuff necessarily was, because again, she's not really been much of a focus in the recent episodes, but she's clearly aware of this. So there's that. The ISB scene was basically just, I suppose, having a scene with Lonnie, who ends up becoming much more important in terms of the Luthen scene later on, but he seems to be the main person giving an opinion on what to do about the whole Krieger situation, the rebel kind of pilot that they had captured and so on. And he suggests that they investigate it, because it would make sense. It would be logical for us to investigate it. It would actually look weirder if we didn't investigate this. So that's how we can kind of get a closer look at things. Deidre was just sort of there, and maybe seemed the slightest bit annoyed that Lonnie was kind of taking the lead here, I suppose. So we'll see what happens there. If she kind of maybe, in her quest to be even more ambitious, tries to get rid of competitors or anything like that. I'm not quite sure if we're at that point, but I can almost see them potentially going down some sort of a road where, does she realize that Cyril is sort of obsessed with her? And so it's just oh, if you want to help me, take out or do something to get in the way of the people who are kind of getting in my way. Might she use him that way? I don't really know. Again, this is where I suppose the lack of direction with the whole Cyril Karn thing is a little bit weird. But, it was just one quick scene in the episode. Mon Mothma in this episode. So again, we got her meeting with the kind of shady banker that we set up from the previous episode. The guy who's basically a criminal, but they need to do this this way to secure the money. So it's a somewhat lengthy dialogue scene that highlights that, okay, he is Chandrillon as well. So that's an interesting connection. So they have the whole, they know what the cultures are. Bit of dialogue about that. He tries to kind of a few power plays in the scene just to sort of, he's sort of aware, I suppose, that Mon Mothma is a little bit anxious, to a certain degree, apprehensive about going through with this, and so he's kind of no, I want you to tell me that you want to do things through this sort of illegal banking way, and she tries to stay on brand. They get to the point where they're basically agreeing to it. So what's the fee? We assume you just want a percentage of the money that we're kind of transferring. And he's no fee, but he basically wants this sort of favor, which is that, based on what was said earlier on in the scene, that he has been to Coruscant, I guess, once before. He would like to come back, and he would like to bring his son with him. And immediately, I think if you've been following the show, you know exactly the path that they're going on. I think the fact that he mentioned 14-year-old son, and we know that's basically around the same age as Mon Mothma's daughter. And so, because we've just recently learned about the kind of culture there, where they kind of have arranged marriages at 15, that's what he wants. He wants to sort of basically set the stage for some sort of a arranged marriage here. And of course, Mon Mothma like basically refuses the deal over this situation. Um, and obviously it's shown that she cares about her daughter. She wants her daughter to be able to, I suppose, make her own choices here and not sort of be forced into this necessarily, because she doesn't particularly like this kind of custom of her people. But the question, I suppose, going forward with this is going to be, okay, they have to find a way for her to get the money. So is she going to have to do this? Will the banker guy go behind her back? Because I think he says he knows her Mon Mothma's husband more. So if he just goes to the husband seems to have like a closer connection with the daughter, and he might be the one to actually maybe organize this. There's also the weird sense with regards to the daughter herself, and with regards to like, okay, she's rebellious, so that gives you the impression that she probably is not interested in this at all. But because she's more rebellious just literally against her mother, like you kind of almost wouldn't be surprised if the idea that this kind of proposal effectively has been made, and her mother was the one to refuse it, she might just be like, no, I want to meet him just to kind of get one over on you. That might be the way they go with this, but I think they also might just be contrasting the idea that, you know, effectively what Luthen talks about in the final scene is that he will sacrifice anything to make this happen, whereas it seems like Mon Mothma is not willing to sacrifice everything to make that happen. Like, she is not going to basically effectively arrange a marriage with her daughter with a criminal just so the Rebel Alliance can have more money. That would, I guess, be a step too far. But I do wonder where they're going with this plot overall. Because, again, the Mon Mothma plot has definitely been the kind of weirdest one in terms of, like, what the actual focus is on. Because they're giving just as much attention to, like, her family dynamic as they are to necessarily the kind of politics of what she's actually trying to accomplish in all of this. So, eager to see where they go. But again, her arc has to get to not Luthen, but Mon Mothma being one of the main leaders of the Rebel Alliance. So I'm guessing she will kind of remain as the kind of heart of the Rebel Alliance, who isn't willing to sacrifice everything. But we'll see what they do with that. The Luthen scene, before we get to the prison break, of course, happens right at the end. There's one setup scene for this from before, which effectively is the kind of, like Lonnie wants to have a meeting, effectively. His assistant doesn't want Luthen to do this. She's suspicious. Of course, she's very suspicious of everything. But he goes to meet him. He says, like, it's been a year. I might as well do this. I'll take the day. So, yeah, the big reveal in all of this is that Lonnie, the kind of one of the more important kind of ISB characters, is actually, a double agent. He is actually allied with the rebel, the burgeoning rebels, and he is reporting to Luthen on basically what's happening. That Deidre is quickly catching on to sort of the cells and the organization and so on. The attack that kind of Krieger's involved in, the one that Saul kind of refused to be involved in. He's telling Luthen about this. And the whole time through, Luthen is kind of just like, oh, hey, you're a father now. And, Lonnie, he's trying to get out at this point. Because he's a father, he doesn't want to kind of do this anymore. But Luthen is like, no, we need you. At the end, he says he's a hero, but throughout the whole thing, you can tell that, like, okay, like, this is kind of the way Luthen kind of views this. And it's like, when he's kind of called out for, like, what have you sacrificed for this? And it's a nice scene, like it's a nice monologue that Luthen gives here about, what he's been forced to do. Basically, sacrifice everything for something he won't get to experience the result of, basically, because he knows it's going to take enough time. He's old. It's by the time it's all done, he'll only maybe get to experience the tail end of it, if he even gets there. And then even then, he has kind of, been forced to almost do Empire-like tactics to make this happen. will he even be the right person capable of celebrating if he gets to witness the success in the end? And that's the kind of whole point in all of this. So, another solid Luthen scene. I'm not going to freak out about it as much as other people have been. You know, it's a nice monologue. It was nicely acted, but I don't think it's the best ever seen in Star Wars, because you knew he was building up to saying, "What have I sacrificed? Everything," because he's the one sort of running the show effectively. And they've definitely set up the idea of he is the one who has introduced the more sort of, kind of terrorism aspects almost of the Rebel Alliance into things, and that's what needs to be done. Now, the prison break. This was the thing I think everyone was waiting for this episode, because this is what the whole arc was building up towards. What I'd say about it is that I liked how it was done, but I was also a little bit sort of like disappointed by the fact that it was kind of rather straightforward. That there wasn't that many kind of twists or turns or particularly kind of clever things that happened. Now, admittedly, I think that's part of the point of the scene, is to highlight that, effectively, one or two little things just allowed for the prisoners to just rise up against arrogant empire who had staffed a giant prison facility with next to no guards, a hugely skewed kind of population of how many guards there are versus prisoners, and they were able to engineer a pretty simple plan to get out in the end. And what it amounted to was set up from the previous episode. When the new guy was being brought in, they jammed the lift halfway down, so they basically have steps up and out, because they know they're basically only going to be fighting two guards in the room with them, and once they get out, they have access to guns and stuff like that, and with the amount of people that they have, they can just basically storm through the prison. And then all they need to do is get to, again, the also understaffed sort of command center, and alert the other prisoners to what's happening. And the same rising up is going to happen across the facility. And it was just this kind of steamroller kind of effect of just nothing really got in their way. Yes, a few characters who had gotten tiny spotlights over the course of the arc got kind of gunned down in the process. The new guy gets gunned down. The main guy kind of conspiring with Andor got gunned down. One of the main guys from one of the other tables got shot. The other main point was that, okay, what's Andor doing in the bathroom with the kind of pipe? It is just a water pipe. He gets it going, and this is actually a key part of it, because they don't explain this very well in terms of the actual full-on mechanics of how it happens. I think what you have to assume is just that, okay, they activate the floors, but because there's a bunch of water on the floor, the only people who actually get fried by it are the people who are standing in the water. And otherwise, I guess, the water shorts out the system, because I suppose we basically know the electricity supply for the prison is not the best, in that if it completely led to a blackout for a while, just killing an entire floor, sure, I guess the electricity kind of going through the entire water supply shorts out the whole thing. They didn't end up doing any sort of clever stuff about using the special boots that the guards wear to kind of get through or anything like that. And I think that was the kind of main point in all of this. I think the centerpiece scene was definitely Kino announcing to the other prisoners what's going on, kind of spurred on by Andor, but seeing Kino fully kind of get into this and just tell everyone what the plan is, guide everyone on the way out, and just that kind of montage effectively of the guards watching on the main monitor as just this mass of dots just flies through the the prison, and seeing just how badly outnumbered they were. There was a scene where they're basically going through the corridors, and they go past a door, and there's a bunch of guards behind the door, but they're just hiding because they know, even if they're fully armed, the 10 of them or however many there are going to do nothing against thousands of running prisoners, some of which have weapons. they're just going to be completely overtaken. The one thing that I think in all this was a bit weird was that it was never really discussed, the actual sort of like exit strategy. There was one thing of like, okay, how do we get out of the rooms and sort of like just into the prison full stop? Okay, that's fine. But they never really discussed the exit strategy of like, are there ships on the base or anything like that? Never once discussed. So I'm guessing it was always just part of the plan that they were going to dive into the water. And that's what the significance of the whole point of like, they're there at the exit, jumping into the water. That's the only way to flee. And Kino reveals, I can't swim. And I'm going back and forth in my head over like, is this surprisingly kind of clever, the shock of that reveal, or is it a bit silly? And I find myself being somewhere in the middle on it, just because I do think it's a kind of little bit of a manufactured kind of shock moment, because it's effectively meant to be the character realizing that if I dive into the water, I'm dead, because I guess no one is going to be strong enough to just carry like dead weight along with them. And then if he stays in the prison, eventually I suppose backup is going to arrive at the prison and he's going to be one of the only people left. So they leave his fate to be sort of like, we assume he dies, but he is a character who I suppose effectively knew he was dead, because his choices in this situation were effectively stay, but now realize you're just going to get transferred to a different prison when you are freed, or go along with the escape attempt, get everyone else out, but realize that you yourself will not be able to escape overall. Now, there's always the setup for like, because we don't see him die, it's just sort of implied. He could return at some point, and I think people really like the acting on this character. It would be nice to see the character again, but we don't really know what's happening in all of this. So we'll see what exactly happens here. I don't know if we'll ever come back to him or anything like that. I do feel that, especially with the way that they went for, like, okay, everyone jumps in the water, and then the next prison-based scene is just Andor and what's his name, Melchi, or those two characters just on their own, because they were the two characters from Rogue One. So none of the other prison characters particularly mattered that much. It was basically just Andor, Melchi, and kind of Kino, and Kino was obviously left behind. So that's pretty much the whole episode. Again, it sort of highlights that there's not actually that much to discuss about the prison scene, because it was just, they rampaged through, the guards really didn't have anything to respond with, and for the most part, there was no real clever tactics or anything like that. They never particularly set up it being a complicated prison break, but I was expecting there to be a little bit more, like I said, twists and turns. And in the end, they really only made the whole I can't swim bit be the actual kind of reveal in the end. It's one of those ones where I just felt like I think they could have helped him out and escape, and if they wanted to. But it probably is a situation where, look, they got this notable actor in for these couple of episodes, and that's what we'll see of him. The door's open if they need to bring this character back for any reason, but I don't really know necessarily what that reason is, unless we're going to make this character into a rebel, which I don't necessarily know how that connection particularly happens, but we'll see what we do. So, the core point, Andor is out. So, what way are we going to do this over 2 episodes? So, we're not even doing like a 3-episode arc here. So, I'm guessing what this is going to have to be is more or less just sort of like 2 episodes of sort of epilogue / setup, and we'll see if they do anything else. Like, they've been talking a lot about the whole kind of Krieger raid and stuff like that, the ISB being onto them. Are we going to see this idea that, like, here we see like a a complete rebel failure with that cell, but while that's been happening, Andor is now in, and we're building up this other rebel cell or whatever. Will we see that? I'm guessing he's gonna have to, I think, come across the death of his mother. I don't think there's time necessarily to do the whole, what happened to my sister plot or anything like that. So I don't really know what to make of that. Interestingly, with regards to this arc, they never had the ISB characters at all realize Andor was in prison. Now, maybe that will be something that gets brought up in the next episode, because they're going to have to note, I suppose, the ISB. It'll have to come up as a topic of discussion that there was a mass breakout of a notable Imperial facility, because they did mention that they need us to make these things, so it's going to be viewed as being somewhat important. And they're going to, I suppose, go through the list of prisoners. And I'm guessing it'll be brought to the attention of everyone that, hey, this character, he's Andor. We had Andor in prison and didn't realize it. How did this happen? And now what? Because they've been looking for Andor, even though they've had him. Now he's out, and surprisingly, he's probably going to be easier to find now that he's out of prison, even though they had him in prison. So that's a very kind of like funny situation, but we'll see where they go. The takeaway from this is probably going to have to be Andor realizing the extent of the Empire and how you can't just, go away, you use some money to live a new life, because the Empire will find some way to use you or take your freedom away from you. And it's really just, I think, from this point going to be, is he now going to feel like I have to be on the run for a long time? Will this directly lead to, actually, I was basically part of a rebellion, I should go back to joining that? And I suppose this is where the whole Melchi, again, not the most standout character, a lot of names here for characters who are ultimately not super important, but anyway, will that be the character to bring Andor in? Because he's here for a reason, to have the connection to Rogue One, and we'll see what they do. So yeah, I think that's about it for this episode. So overall, again, an enjoyable episode. The show continues to be pretty good. I'm not blown away by it, obviously, like a lot of people are. So there's always going to be that sort of, like, I suppose, a disconnect with me in that I'm not viewing this as being the best Star Wars TV we've ever had. There's stuff to take from this and utilize going forward in other projects, but there is stuff for this show to learn. And I think that's what I'm not seeing enough of online, is I'm seeing almost like what I would say is next to no criticism outside of like the group of people who are just like, the show's boring, I got bored 5 minutes in and turned it off, that sort of like crowd. I'm not really seeing a lot of constructive criticism, like necessarily anywhere, any places to grow for the show. And I think there are places where improvements could be made. So that's my main takeaway there. So in the comments, let me know what your thoughts are on episode 10 of Andor. Otherwise, that's been the video. Thanks for watching, and bye.